and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series Leipzig here as we wrap up our first series of the day with Hero Marine taking a dominant 2-0 performance over Kaas. I'm your host, Nathanius, joined on the desk by Todd and Rotterdam. Kaas, he showed a little bit of promise in that first game, was able to catch Hero Marine off guard, but not able to close it out and then lost to the Cheddar in game 2.
It's been a bit of his problem, you know, like we know that he still has, you know, some good skills, but when going against some of the best, it feels like something's missing compared to all times. And he shows good things, but every time it's not quite enough if he faces a big name against somebody like Hero Marine.
Yeah, it's tough, Kev.
Yeah, I love the brutal honesty, though, of Big Gabe, his interviews, Hero Marine. He's just so funny, because he always talks down on almost anything that happens. He's like, yeah, that big fight. I was surprised by how many units he had. I was like, is that like a compliment? But then he messed up like I did, but even worse. Like, it's so funny. I've had a couple of very funny interactions with him. We could maybe perhaps jump into my laptop real quick, if that's possible, because I think we've got the closing moments of a game between Snoot and Bly. As you guys are seeing here right now, well, these really are the closing moments. GG, sorry guys. I tried, but right before we jumped in, he ran like 20 Zerglings into a Baneling.
Tried to barely catch the other one. That one ties the series up, right?
That is correct. We can talk a little bit about some of the other things, because some people at home, they wonder, like, what are you guys doing when you're not casting? They think I'm sitting out there drinking Bloody Marys or Weizen. No.
In reality, you're on Snapchat. So.
Yeah, no, I've been watching games.
And he's on Snapchat. But yeah, there are a lot of other games being played at this moment, as we have quite a few players competing across several groups right now. We're going to take a look at some of the group results. You guys can tell me if anything stands out to you. DNS and Soul leading their group over TLO and Ziggy.
Who beat TLO?
Soul did.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, I think, from Soul, for sure.
Yeah, ShoWTimE and Cham leading their group. That's going to be our next matchup as well.
Yeah, I actually watched game 2 between ShoWTimE and HateMe. That was a very good game. HateMe is a very unknown player, I think, outside of Europe, but he's very good, super solid. But it was a good victory by ShoWTimE. A long game with Lurkers and Banelings and Hydras, but ShoWTimE is looking mighty fine in the PvZ matchup, and if he wants to make a deep run here, that's obviously what you need.
Yeah. Harston was able to take that victory over Hilton, as of course we did just see Hero Marine beat Kaas. Bly and Snoot leading their group.
Yep, that's the winners match. Is currently tied 1-1. The games between Bly and Snoot, guys, have been very funny. The first game, Bly opened up with a 12-pool gasless, and he pulled 9 out of his 12 drones, and he built 4 spine crawlers in the main and natural of Snoot. So at one point, they were fighting with 3 drones against 5 drones. 1 spine in the end took down the last 5 drones. It's been a real Bly series.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That's just weird.
I've been keeping an eye on Group H, the most stacked group in my opinion here in this group stage 2, and I was following Lambo against Mana. In game 1, Mana killed a bunch of drones. Lambo went all in with Linkbane Hydra and just killed him. Game 2, Lambo threw a lot of Lurker armies at Mana, and Mana held every single time by the skin of his teeth and ended up winning. Game 3, Lambo went for a massive Lurker attack, but this time even earlier than the previous time. Maybe we can jump into the game so I can show you guys the final moments of that game here on Backwater. And yeah, so Lambo just goes for a massive Lurker attack here. He brought Queen, he brought everything. He brought the whole Zerg arsenal, Lynx, ready to bust in there. So first he's gonna take down the wall here of Mana, who realizes very late that he was gonna be a Lurker attack. He was getting ready at first for, I think, just some sort of Hydra Linkbane attack, getting, you know, shield batteries, cannons and all that. And then as he realized it, he started going for disruptors, but he's just a little too late here. I'm gonna speed it up so you guys can see. Lambo breaches the wall, and then immediately the Lynx will start on going to work inside of that Protoss base at the top here, as Mana simply will not be ready for this. Like, he tries to buy as much time as he can get to disruptors, but Lambo knew that there was a timer before they would get there, so it just kind of kills him here.
Yeah, definitely difficult to deal with that. As you said, the disruptors coming out just a little bit too late. So some interesting results so far. Curious to see where the Bly Snoot series ends up.
Yeah, I'm going to keep a close eye on that one as well. I also want to mention that I was watching ShoWTimE versus Helton. Helton is a Norwegian Terran player that's also quite unknown, but the kid is actually pretty good. I watched those first 2 games, kind of what you expect though. Like, solid openings. He killed quite a few probes against ShoWTimE twice, but in the end it wasn't enough. So we're going to get ready for ShoWTimE versus Hero Marine in that group, and Helton will go up against Kaas in the TVT series.
Yep, so it's been an interesting start so far to the games. Of course, our next series coming up very soon should be another good one, as we're going to get into the PvZ action. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the World Championship Series Leipzig. We'll be right back with our next match.
Another early morning, huh?
Dad, I'm getting wrecked. Can't I buy some stronger units?
Buy units? Son, we don't talk like that in this house. Come with me. Your grandfather didn't give his life just so his grandson could pay money to be good at something.
But, Dad, Grandpa's still alive.
And your mother. She wanted to bring you into a world where you'd be judged by your elite skills, not by what you spend. Son, your family's legacy awaits.
Cool. Did you bedazzle Mom's engagement ring?
StarCraft 2, the legendary competitive game, is now free to play. Your legacy awaits at StarCraft2.com.
Is that my ring? If that thing's wrecked,
Today, we retake our legacy. The ultimate real-time strategy game is now free to play. It's about time. StarCraft 2, get it now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2018 World Championship Series for StarCraft 2. We're here in Leipzig, Germany, to find the first WCS Circuit champion of the year. With a dominant performance, Hero Marine took out Koss 2-0, but there is much more StarCraft to come. Hello, I'm Nathanius, your host for this weekend, joined on the desk by Todd and Zombie Grub. Todd, we got to see a little bit of TVT. Now we get some Protoss action. You can finally feel a little more comfortable talking about the game.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely one of the matchups, actually, I would say, that has evolved a lot. And a lot of people look at TvZ as the most fun matchup, and it very well might be in StarCraft 2. But I feel like PvZ is really getting there these days, because you got this whole dynamic of Protoss trying to prevent Zerg from making drones, so they have to get into their face, and then Zerg are the ones attacking the Protoss because they don't want them to max out with Storm. So there's all these attacks happening, and it's a very dynamic matchup, so I enjoy it a lot.
Zombie Grub, how are you enjoying your time in Leipzig so far as we've kicked off the year for StarCraft?
I'm actually really excited to be back in Germany. I was here 3 years ago and haven't made it back since. I didn't get to do anything really, I guess, German, like speak German or go to cool places in Germany, but now I'm here and I'm actually really happy to be.
Yeah, our next series is going to be ShoWTimE versus Cham. So Protoss versus Zerg. I think there's an interesting story here, as ShoWTimE did not have the best results last year. We saw him as a BlizzCon contender 2 years ago, but Cham had a couple of interesting results, stepping up a little bit. We got to see some good interviews from him. Kind of makes this for an interesting series.
Yeah, Cham actually one of the big surprises last year early on in the circuit, who was top 8 for a very long time and looking pretty good to have a chance to maybe make it to the global finals. Didn't quite end up making it, but he definitely showed that he had some potential, and I think this year he's trying to unravel that full potential and maybe make it to the global finals. He's a very ambitious guy. Every time I talk to him, he tells me, you know, I want to make that top 4, I want to play on stage, you know, this is my dream. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, he like kind of snuck up on, I think, everyone, basically, almost reaching to the top 8, which was really quite good. But I do feel like 2018 is kind of like his proving point, right? Like, was that kind of like a fluke? Did he get a couple of good groups? Did he just sneak his way in because no one ever took him seriously, no one ever looked at the standings? Or is he actually like this, like, you know, really great Zerg who's ready to take on ShoWTimE, who also has a lot to prove in 2018?
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of like ShoWTimE either reestablishes himself as a top competitive foreign player, or Cham uses this as an opportunity to say that, hey, I am here to stay, and I'm going to stay on top of everybody.
But ShoWTimE, it's almost comical, though, in those WCS events. Every time it's like ShoWTimE versus Zergs, all stars, and like you see him match after match, game after game, just playing all of these Zergs. Like the one WCS event a while back that he won in finals against Nurture, remember, he only played against Zergs almost exclusively. So in a lot of these WCS events, you're gonna see him play very well against Zerg most of the time and beat a lot of them, but there's also been that one where he lost pretty early in the second group stage, so we hope for him that it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, I think he made a tweet saying, like, some people consider the group stage 2 the hardest, of course, referencing the one time they lost out. But I expect I expect a lot of great things from him in 2017. He was one of my favorite Protosses to watch. I just thought he was very solid, which is a good strength of a Protoss player, but yeah, never quite able to get there. So I do feel like in a lot of ways these guys are similar in their storylines. Of course, this doesn't actually, like, signify who's going to make it into the round of 8, but it could be the start.
There's still a long way to go in the tournament, and it's interesting as you consider that the story has been mostly about Zerg players, other than Neeb as the Protoss that stood out last year. What's been lacking for the Protoss players outside of Neeb? What's the difference? What do players like ShoWTimE and Hearthstone lack that Neeb really showed where these players need to step up?
Not sure what it is in particular. I would say like Neeb kind of has it all, like when you look at his mechanics, he's just so flawless. And despite, listening to him in interviews, he won't necessarily show confidence when he's actually playing the game. He's like the opposite. Whereas ShoWTimE, I'm not sure if it's self-doubt at times, but he's definitely had some rougher times where maybe he was a little bit burnt out and all stuff like that last year. But these days, I would say he's playing very, very strong. He just recently won Ladder Heroes, beating Nurchio 3-0 in finals and looked great against Zerg.
So I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because they also played in the qualifiers for this event, right? And ShoWTimE was unable to face off against Nurchio and win, actually. He actually lost. So the way that he lost, though, and what I look at ShoWTimE as kind of his weakness is maybe his all-ins, maybe his variety of builds. The all-ins that he did were the games that he lost, and the macro game was the one that he won. So I don't know if it's indicative of his entire play, but I believe so.
Okay, well, we're about to find out which way he's going to take the series. Anna is on the stage, ready to introduce the players. Anna, ready to get into some PvZ action?
I certainly am. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so excited because we're here welcoming ShoWTimE on his own turf. We're here in Germany, and he has a lot to prove. He wants to find that redemption for 2017, where his results were not quite up to the mark of his 2016 results. But on the other side, we have Cham, this up-and-comer, this someone who was almost in BlizzCon. He's got a lot to prove for himself as well. So let's get right into this PvZ. Are you ready? Please welcome ShoWTimE and Cham!
ShoWTimE coming in, of course, our German Protoss against Cham, who's been that up-and-comer, that player that has been upsetting here and there. Todd, when we look at Protoss versus Zerg in the last few months, the big patch that came up in November, do we see that as something has the matchup changed a lot recently, or is it still a good amount of what we saw last year?
Zergs have gotten really good at the whole metagame of using Hydralisks a whole bunch, and in particular evolving into Lurkers. Like Lurkers is like the units that once upon a time was not even considered, to be used, but nowadays we see so many of them, and they're really the X factor in the matchup. From Protosses, a lot of the time, especially guys like ShoWTimE, it's very standard. It's going to be, you Stargates into Twilight, and then they choose, usually it's Charge that they go into, Archons, add some Immortals, add Storm. But ShoWTimE is, I would say, one of the best at going into the mid to late game. When it's time, when he reaches 170 supply, you're always going to see that Fleet Beacon being dropped, going to Mothership, Tempest, Kairos, and all that. Whereas Cham, historically, is a very aggressive player, so you can expect him to be trying to set the pace in the mid game and trying to make something happen, because if they go into the late game, I would say he has not the best of chances.
I would agree with that. It feels kind of circular almost. Legacy of the Void started off with Lurkers being pretty powerful. A lot of us are having a tough time. Then they really disappeared. Now it's back to Lurkers being that tough unit to go up against. But Cham is aggressive, and that actually maybe could be a blessing for ShoWTimE, who can be quite good at the defense, can actually weather the storm and get to that mid game.
Would you say that has to do more with the map setup for players like Cham, with like the way that the Lurkers have been used? Was it just the Hydralisk meta in general?
Yeah, and the fact that the Disruptor was changed, now it's much harder to use effectively against stuff like Lurkers. And I think also for a long time, Zergs didn't realize the true strength of Lurkers. There's a lot of early game timings that you can do where they will be very effective. So that makes it very hard to counter. But then again, like ShoWTimE, unless you can somehow make something happen early on that's going to be very good, later when he reaches a bigger army, Lurkers are not really a big problem for him anymore. Like me and Roddy were watching him going up against Hate Me, and there was like this one fight where he was getting sieged by like 12 Lurkers, and ShoWTimE just crushed it. And me and Roddy just looked at each other and we were like, I would have lost this game 20 times off 20.
All right, well, it's time to find out if ShoWTimE is going to be able to bring back that old form, or if Cham will continue this path of rising up. It's going to be a PvZ. Let's get right into it.
Okay, guys, it is time for ShoWTimE versus Cham. And Wardian with me is Roddy, as we have one heck of a match here in the winners bracket of Group B. And it's going to be one to send one of these players through to the round of 32 already today, into that prize money, into those WCS points.
Yeah, big series for both of these guys, because the lower bracket matches in this group are not going to be easy. You've got Hate Me in this group, and you've got Guru in this group as well. So far, I would say on paper, these were the two favorites, and they did deliver 2-0, 2-0. But nobody really wants to play a rematch PvZ against Guru, because he's crazy if Cham would lose. And at the same time, ShoWTimE also probably looked at the series that he played against Hate Me and be like, damn, Hate Me is pretty damn tough. I mean, Todd mentioned it as well. I was watching those games very closely, and even though it was a 2-0, it wasn't one-sided at all. So I think it's safe to say that this series absolutely does matter, and I'm excited for it as we're looking at the main base of the German Protoss, spawning in the left bottom side of Blackpink. It is ShoWTimE.
In the upper right-hand side of Blackpink, we do have our Mexican Zerg player representing OSC Elite. It is Cham.
I think before we truly talk about the openings and the strategies we could possibly see in this series, or why they should be going for a certain build or not, we could talk a little bit about the maps. Now, I have kind of bad news, Wardy. Once again, we're going to start off on two maps that we've seen a lot before. The first map, obviously, as you guys can see, is Blackpink. The next map is going to be played on Catalyst. But if it does go to a decider, it will be decided on Acid Plant, and that should actually be quite fun. ShoWTimE decided to veto a Biogenesis and Backwater, while Cham vetoed Neon Violet Square and Eastwatch.
Yeah, an interesting set of vetoes there. I think a lot of these players don't really want to play on the new maps right away, you know, play on what you're confident on, play on what you've been able to practice for quite some time now. And obviously Blackpink and Catalyst are two of the most standard maps that we had in the last map pool, so no surprise at all. You should see us getting off to a nice standard start here.
I'd love to see this series being decided on Acid Plant though, because I don't think I've casted a single game yet on that map. I have been able to play at least 5, 6, 7 games on every one of the Neo maps, but I had to go a couple of days to Poland as well to cast the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice qualifier, so didn't have that much time. And I think the same goes for these players, especially someone like Cham, who obviously had to come from America. I think he spent a couple of days in the US, in Philadelphia, and perhaps he flew straight from there towards Leipzig, because it was just very recent. And he had a good showing there. He made it all the way to the final, and Philadelphia was a pretty damn stacked event. He did fall against Neep 4-1. And the one game he won, I don't think he's going to feel super good about that one victory over Neep, as Neep decided to tap out rather early after he cancelled his own Nexus.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most unimpressive victories I've ever seen in StarCraft 2. As we do have our early game tech choices being made here by ShoWTimE, and honestly, this is what he was doing in the WCS Challenger preseason event as well, just opening Stargate pretty much every single game. Then kind of changing things up. Sometimes the double Oracle, sometimes the one Oracle, and then he really did have a large variety of builds behind that as well. But for now, the first few minutes, really nothing too crazy.
Yeah, the beginning is super standard here. ShoWTimE and a Stargate in this matchup go hand in hand. There really is nothing else to say. Most of the time it's Oracle first, Phoenix second. Sometimes it's Phoenix first, Oracle second. Sometimes it's Oracle, Oracle, Phoenix, and sometimes he just sticks with 2 Oracles. Now, Cham is a little different, though, than the majority of the Zergs that I've seen ShoWTimE play against lately. And the main difference lies in the Roach Warren. A lot of the top European Zergs, they don't like Roach Warrens against Protoss. They say it's useless, they say it's a waste of money. Roaches die to Immortals, Archons, which Protoss makes anyway, and they just don't really see the point. But Cham is still one of those old-school Roach lovers, and if you truly love your Roaches, there's always a chance that sometimes he doesn't make the 7 or 8 safety Roaches against Adept Pressure. No, he will keep on making Roaches and try to overrun the Protoss.
But if there is a Protoss who's so good at that sort of style, it has to be ShoWTimE, right? Because he is so good at his defense, he is so patient so often, and he will hit the force fields when he needs them to. So it's kind of a tough clash here, as we do see this first Oracle just poking around, trying to see what's up, and we'll be heading in towards the main base to see if he can get a worker or two in the next couple of moments.
Yeah, might be able to get one, just one though. Good positioning there on the Queen as well. If the Queen would have been on the other side of the hatchery, that's Gent that ShoWTimE gets 2 probes there. Then we do have that follow-up Phoenix, and now let's see what ShoWTimE decides to do. Are we going to see the good old 2 extra gates? Is it going to be 3 extra gates? Or is it going to go Le Explosion, the gateway, as Todd would like to say? But I'm expecting ShoWTimE to just play a macro-oriented style here, for all the reasons I just mentioned. Cham is a Roach Warren player. We can already see the Roach Warren on the production tab. There is no need to all-in a Zerg that makes Roaches. Roaches are very strong defensively early on against Protoss all-ins. That is an excellent little Zerg run by the way. Well, he doesn't really run by, but he gets 2 adepts. He picks up the Zealot as well, and this makes it harder for ShoWTimE to expand. Really good pick-off there by Cham.
But look at all of these gateways here from ShoWTimE, going up to 6 gates in total, with the Templar Archives now coming down as well. Alongside that charge upgrade, ShoWTimE is heading into quite a lot of aggression before he goes in towards this 3rd Nexus.
Yep, that's 1 gateway more than you would expect if he just wants to expand. Perhaps even 2 gateways more, because often you just see 3 extra gates, which, I mean, they already have 1. But now it's straight up 5 gates. So ShoWTimE definitely wants to get some damage done. But I think it's going to really truly rely on his War Prism play, because just running in Zealots into bases is not going to achieve that much because of the Roach Warren that Cham has.
Yeah, the Roaches are really kind of the safety feature here for Cham that's going to keep him so kind of just solid in this matchup at the moment. This kind of build from ShoWTimE really punishes players who try to tech up the Hydras quickly, who try to maybe even skip the Bane nest a little while. But against the Roaches, they can kite those Zealots back, they can avoid the Archon attacks for a while as well, and that goes a long, long way, especially if you have to split your units up, if there's a Warp Prism in one location and not in the other.
Yep, look at these 11 Roaches already on the way, +1 missile attacks even, no melee upgrades here for Cham. He is truly going to rely on his Roaches. Now, Roaches are perfect on paper, but at the end of the day, guys, StarCraft 2 is a game where execution matters more than your strategy. So even though Cham, I think, has the right build to potentially deal with this, the execution is going to have to be perfect. He's going to have to kite those Zealots, and he's going to have to keep his Roaches alive.
Well, here we go. ShoWTimE makes his way up in towards the 30. Traps the Queen already, but the Archons are alone fighting those Roaches. But that is where, of course, that Warp Prism can come into play and keep those Archons alive for so long. Going to lift up now, and going to be starting to warp in a few of those extra Zealots. As this 3rd base is still in trouble, and those drones are stacking up. He needs to be very careful about where he pulls them through the Archons, because he does not want to take the splash damage. But 10 workers are already dead here, Roddy.
Yeah, Cham's micro is not great here. All of his units were too clumped up. He wasn't hidden running. He wasn't kiting the way he's supposed to do. And he took way more damage of this attack so far. Not only that he lost Roaches, he lost 10 drones and he's lost 2 Queens as well. This is doing way more than it was supposed to do on paper.
Yeah, all right. Well, right now, ShoWTimE is really just not going to be able to do anything wrong, right? He's killing every single drone in this mineral line. The Archons are going to get saved again, and man, I don't even want to think about how many kills those Archons have on them, because it has been a disaster for Cham here so far, as ShoWTimE continues to just bait Cham a little bit with those couple of Archons, teasing him away as he backs off. And well, he's just looking to maybe even warp in again towards the main base.
Archon Zealot against Roaches and Queens, and somehow ShoWTimE walks away with 2 Archons, and he killed 31 drones. That is madness. Just ShoWTimE things there. But gotta be a little bit critical there of Cham. His units were too clumped up, like you mentioned as well. Archons are great against anything of Zerg that's clumped up. But if those Roaches are just split up a little bit, those Archons hit 1, max 2 Roaches at a time, they really start losing their firepower very quickly. And Zealots alone are simply not effective against Roaches, because Roaches can kite them, especially on creep. So, I mean, once again, on paper it was good for Cham, but the execution wasn't great enough.
I think one of the great things for ShoWTimE there as well was he just got rid of those Queens so quickly. The Phoenix came in with a lift, and, you know, already 1 Queen's dead, and then the other Queen got trapped. So suddenly that Warp Prism is completely free to micro warp in wherever it wants to, and that just really amplifies the attack here of ShoWTimE. Well, now, I mean, 68 works to the 52. When the army supply is even and the army of Cham is made up of Roaches, that really ain't a pretty scenario. We've got Storm on the way, Immortals, +1 attack. Everything ShoWTimE needs to basically, in a couple of minutes, walk across the map and be like, hey, what's up? You don't really have much, do you?
Yeah, I have no idea what Cham is supposed to do from this point. I mean, he's kind of stuck on his Roaches. He's getting Overlord speed. Now, Cham is the type of Zerg that loves to go for big drop plays as well. Drop Roaches and Hydras. He doesn't really have money for Hydras right now, but he can still drop Roaches. Maybe Burrow and Tunneling Claws could be a comeback mechanic in this game. But Cham is going to have a very, very tough time, because losing 31 drones, that's simply unacceptable. That's way too many.
ShoWTimE Storm about to finish up. He has those Archons are still in this Warp Prism, just looking for the opportunity to get another couple of workers, perhaps. I mean, it's just keeping Cham at home as well. You know, if Cham maybe has one way back in the game, maybe it is to go counter-aggressive while he just has a ton of Roaches out from the defense. But how do you actually do that if the Archons are pressuring all the time, stopping you from sending everything across the map, unless you're going to lose another mineral line? Yeah. And obviously here and then you also still get another couple of drones, and you just keep Cham from hitting that 70, 80 worker count, which he would love to be at right now, as he does now start to move across the map. he's just making pure roaches at this stage.
Yep, he's gonna get a couple Ravages as well, so maybe Corrosive Ball, but at the end of the day, you know, you can make Mass Roach work if the Immortal count is low and if the Archon count is low, but none of those things is the case. There's an Oracle flying around here as well that's gonna keep track of all these units, so it's very unlikely that Cham is gonna find ShoWTimE out of position. Cham does have a bigger army though. It's actually a massive army of 113 supply, but how can he get the engagement that he's looking for?
Every single position here involves pushing it to a choke point, and there's even cannons up here and shield batteries. This is not going to be an easy position to fight. ShoWTimE's a little bit choked up as well, though, which is going to hurt him here as he tries to wrap around the side instead. And now he does get out in towards this concave as he has to split away, but he is leaving his stack defense behind. But big storms on the Ravages in the back, and they are disappearing, and now it's just pure Roach. And that's not going to last very long at all against so many Immortals as he pulls back to the shield batteries. The shields are coming back up, and GG, ShoWTimE takes game number 1 of this best of 3.
Yep, even though it looked sort of promising there with a couple of Archons going down quite quickly, in the end, that's just not enough. Cham knows, as long as ShoWTimE is standing strong on 4 or 5 Immortals and he can't get close to them, there's nothing he can do with that army. He was making 15 additional Roaches behind this, but his hand was kind of forced. Some people might be wondering, like, Mass Roach Ravager, how does Cham ever think this is going to work? Well, I don't think this was his initial plan, but he probably felt, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. I have lost 31 drones. What can I do? Well, maybe make a cheap unit and try to overrun my opponent. Here goes nothing, you know. It's just something that he was kind of forced into. Probably not something he really wanted to do. And ShoWTimE is probably like, damn, those 2 Archons early game. They deserve a cheeky medal.
Yeah, they really were the champions of that game. And I mean, again, still at the very end, they were part of the fight. They were harassing. He just never let up with them. And Cham just... he lost the momentum early, and he just let ShoWTimE do whatever he wanted to. And even when he tried to throw that large attack at him, I mean, ShoWTimE was more than prepared. When you have Storm ready for a big kind of all-in-ish Roach attack, what is your hope? You get stormed once, and then the models are like 1-2 shot and Roaches. It's not a pretty time for the Zerg players. We're going to be jumping into game 2 here in just a moment. Catalyst for our next map gets a little bit more interesting, a little bit different here.
And games like that are extra painful, though, if you are a Cham, because you're basically making a Roach Warren, which is something a lot of top Zergs don't do anymore, with the idea that if my opponent makes a bunch of Zealots or Adepts and goes for a little bit of War Prison play, I'm going to be able to deal with that, I'm going to be able to shut it down, and then I can counterattack, and there will be that small window in the game where my Roaches are actually very useful. So you feel like you're doing everything right, you have a proper read on your opponent, he's in position, and then it still goes so terribly wrong. Those games are really hard to shake up. You know, losing a first game in a best of 3, obviously these guys are pros, it happens all the time. But if you feel like everything was perfect for you on paper, yet you just crumbled, you just fell apart. It's hard to just forget about that. It's hard to just move on. All right, let's go ahead in game number 2. Because Cham is thinking, damn, I have no idea why that happened or how that happened, but I know that that shouldn't have happened.
One thing Cham's got to be a bit worried about is just another aggressive attack as well, right? And that means ShoWTimE can play a little bit more kind of into his mind, like, well, am I going to attack, am I not? And, you know, then Cham has to be looking for things, and it can get a little bit tricky as we are going to be jumping into game number 2 to the bottom right-hand side of the map. Our Blue Protoss player, it is ShoWTimE.
His PvZ is looking mighty fine, and I genuinely believe that if you want to make deep runs in these European WCS events, you need good Protoss versus Zerg, because that's going to be 70% of your matchup, especially deeper on into the tournament. Let's see if the Mexican Zerg can get it together. Spawning on the left top side, it is Cham.
I really do feel ShoWTimE has such a mixture of results against Zerg lately. Like right now, he's looking fantastic, but a couple weeks ago, he lost to Bly to not even get into top 8 of Challenger. And Bly's not the sort of player you expect to come in and take down ShoWTimE. And that was like a day after ShoWTimE was already looking kind of good, and you know, he took a map off Nurchio, and he had some really close games there. So it really is a bit of an up and down matchup for ShoWTimE lately, but I mean, again, so far today, he's been looking pretty darn dominant, as we do see just the hatch gas pool opening for Cham here in the early stages. ShoWTimE, nothing crazy just yet. The gateway coming down as part of the wall off as we get set to go here on Catalyst. A little bit of a shorter rush distance map than Blackpink, as we do just see this probe scouting around and just nibbling at those minerals, trying to be annoying and trying to mess up the worker saturation.
I mean, it's odd, right? You make an excellent point there. He didn't make it through Challenger. Well, ShoWTimE in the past, for instance, last year in Montreal, he won Challenger, and he has won Challenger before. He's normally one of those almost locked-in European pros if he's in shape to make it through Challenger. The Challenger for Leipzig didn't go well for him at all. But just a couple of weeks later, he plays the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice European Server Qualifier, and he stomps 3 Zergs in a row. He beats Stefano, he beat Nurcho, and he beats Nemchar. So obviously he knows how to do it in this matchup, but it's a little hit and miss sometimes. But I mean, what I saw earlier today against Hate Me, what I see in Game 1 here against Cham, and of course the recent IM Katowice qualifier, I think that whatever was missing before, I think he's got it figured out.
Well, it'd be great to see, of course, because ShoWTimE really was missing a little bit in 2017. We really did want him there, kind of in the top 8 a bit more often. He made it once, which really for ShoWTimE, you know, he's expected to be top 8 event after event after event, and dropping out in group stages, at some point group stage 2 even.
Yeah.
It's really just not kind of how ShoWTimE was expected to go at all. So really hoping he steps it up here this year.
It was funny though, right?
To show it.
Because it was mostly this one map pool that just didn't work out for him at all. And it wasn't even like universally agreed upon the worst map pool ever for Protoss. I mean, we saw Neep winning event after event. A couple of the other Protosses were doing all right. But there was just that one map pool that was just not ShoWTimE's bread and butter at all. Felt really uncomfortable at it. The moment they removed it, Montreal was already a little bit better because, you know, he won Challenger. I think he made it into the playoffs at least. But I'm still expecting big things. For me, ShoWTimE is still the best Zerg, best Protoss in Europe. Even though DNS is coming close, ShoWTimE in shape is coming close. But for me, he's still the Protoss to look at when it comes to the European Protosses.
Lone Adept looking for some info early on as that Overlord does see the Stargate on the other side of the map as well. So really everyone just seeing what they want to for now, and of course again no real early game shenanigans as it is just that typical Stargate play out of ShoWTimE.
Yeah, I've had this speech a lot, but I do feel it's important to repeat this speech every single time because there's always a new tournament, there's always new viewers watching. Some people might wonder, why does ShoWTimE always open up with the Stargate? There are multiple reasons for it, but ever since we removed the Mothership Core, certain early game all-ins are very tough to hold if you open up with a Twilight or with a Robo, but Stargate A is going to give you the heads up, and B will always give you the units you need to deal with it. You know, whether it is a Void Ray to deal with some Roaches early on, or an Oracle to deal with a Link Flood, Oracle Phoenix to pick off a Dropper-Lord. And if that doesn't happen, as these Zergs are not all in ShoWTimE because they know he opens up with a Stargate, then of course you always have a little bit of map presence. Your Oracle will force out a couple drones into Spore Crawlers, which is indirect economic damage. Your Phoenix is going to clear out the map, which makes it a little bit harder for Zerg to have all the map vision, while you do have map vision with your flying units. So this is just something that's just almost a set-in-stone opening right now for ShoWTimE, and I can't blame him for it. Shield batteries are great, but very early on there are some moments where you could still miss the Mothership Core if you don't have a Stargate.
Build here is slightly different from ShoWTimE in the sense he got the Robo before the Twilight, which means he's actually going to skip charge from now and just throw down the Templar Archives. So he's just going to go for a little bit of an Archon drop while probably looking to secure the third base. Not as aggressive as last time, probably will not go up to the 6 gates until the third Nexus is down. While Cham is opening pretty much the same way. He gets that safety Roach Roar. Now he's going to get some safety Roaches going.
I think this is more than safety Roaches actually, Wadi, because he's making these Roaches way before he has started his layer. And that is not common at all. Cham normally does still want to get a quick layer. He does want to get a Hydra then, but then he indeed makes those safety Roaches. But I am not getting a big safety Roach feeling here. I'm getting a Cham wants to be Cham, and he's going to run everything to the other side of the map, and he's going to try to punish ShoWTimE early on feeling.
Well, ShoWTime's already getting an Immortal out, which will help us. The 2 Queens in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, he really is going to get aggressive then. Didn't see those coming, as that's a big sign for ShoWTimE that something's coming his way.
ShoWTimE already had the Nexus, right? I think he just canceled it. He's like, all right, I don't care about going up to 3 bases. I know that you're not teching up. ShoWTimE has one mission right now, and that is, I don't want to die. This robotics facility is going to fall quite quickly. I don't like where he's rebuilding it. I actually would love to see him rebuild it in the main, because there is a good chance that Cham is going to get that deep into his wall.
You're going to see the Cybercore taking some damage as well. Cham very patient to begin with, just looking to tear this down before diving in. He's already droning behind us as well, perhaps happy with already cancelling the Nexus.
That's painful though, losing the cybernetics core as well. That means at this point, all that ShoWTimE can warp in is Zealots. And Zealots are not fantastic against your Roaches. Besides the previous game, but that shouldn't have happened. A couple force fields do go down. I really like how this is going for Cham so far. Picked up the Robo, picked up the cybernetics core, and he's transitioning, but he's far from done.
Yeah, these transfusions were great as well. Saved the Roach, saved the Queen so far. The Corrosive Files is something that ShoWTimE is able to split away from. Even the Oracle here trying to put out damage with the Pulsar Beam, and ShoWTimE pulls back. He shows us the patience that he's so great at having. and that shield battery setup has just kept him alive for so long here that he's going to get that second immortal up, and I think Cham is maybe needing to kind of keep on attacking and do a bit more. I mean, he's keeping ShoWTimE off a third, but
I think if he picks off a couple pylons, now you get the right pylon there as well, and I think maybe you pick off a couple of zealots, but don't overcommit. If I am Cham right now, I am sending my queens back home, because otherwise, the longer you stick around, that means that all of these queens are going to die. So I would have loved to send him, see him send those queens home as, you know, there you go, the queen's just gonna get picked off for no reason at all, and he's not sending his army back. Force field? No energy.
Well, that's a little bit of a shame for ShoWTimE. He somehow doesn't get hit by a single one of those corrosive vials. As we're going to see a couple of zealots continuing to charge on up here. ShoWTimE begins to rebuild that third Nexus, but he's looking to punish Cham. He's looking to force more units out here and stop him from just drawing it up to the number he wants to be at.
Very risky though, I think, because Cham is already at 61 drones. I understand that ShoWTimE has the feeling he needs to do something, but he's going to end up losing quite a few units here. He only has one immortal. This means roaches can really shine here. Roaches can... he has 2 immortals. And actually 2 Archons as well. All right, I stand corrected. I did not see those power units in the army of ShoWTimE. And that does change things quite a bit. This is going to be a little tougher for Cham than I thought.
Oh my god, those first 2 force fields trap so many units in. The Archon splash damage is already amazing. Drones are pulling into the back end of this fight. As right now, ShoWTime's Immortals are just being left to do what they want. A little bit of micro on the Archons from the Prism, and he feels safe enough to warp in from that Warp Prism as well. However, the Immortals are starting to go down here. The rest of the units are disappearing, and ShoWTimE doesn't have too much left as an extra Immortal does show up, but there seems to be a little bit too much Roach Ravager.
Yeah, he lost a lot of the sentries. He lost a couple of the Zealots as well without really achieving all that much. And these Immortals are strong, but they're all very low on HP. Look at that Oracle working OT, by the way. ShoWTimE is trying to pull up some crazy micro, but you can only have space for 2 Immortals in that Prism. Cham holds, but ShoWTimE did accomplish doing a lot of economic damage here.
15 workers died. It puts ShoWTimE at 60 against 45, and Cham is not interested in replacing those. He's saying, hey, I just killed off so much of your army, so many of those big tech units, the Immortals and Archons. I really feel I can do this now with a large counterattack, as ShoWTimE will have to get set up defensively, but he doesn't have a wall on the natural, he doesn't have shield batteries set up, and these Roaches and Ravagers keep on coming over.
And don't forget that the 2 Immortals from the Prism are actually quite injured as well, but I mean, why Prism Micro is so powerful? The Archon is going to fall though. On the left side, there's one more Archon, but the Archon is screaming at the Immortals right now. Guys, guys, a little bit of backup here, please, as Cham is going to be able to return the favor. Oh, lands a couple of decent corrosive vials as well. But can he stay alive? Can he get these units out of here?
Well, ShoWTimE right now is splitting those Immortals back once again. Nice Phoenix lift on just a single Ravager. Still somehow those Immortals alive as the micro has been so great until just then the Ravager Bile manages to connect. And another Bile and warping in Zealots. They are just disappearing, not warping in the right place. And ShoWTime's going to lose this third Nexus, even though he tried to keep it alive and it cost him a lot of units in the process.
Yep, well done here by Cham. Recall being used on a couple of those probes behind the mineral line, so that's quite cute, but you need a little bit more. There's only so many times you can end up losing your Archons and Immortals before you start running out of steam. Cham still doesn't have an additional tech building. He's only on 45 drones, but those Immortals are so bruised though. Those are not powerful Immortals, as ShoWTimE did manage to get 2 healthy ones. It's still quite close. Even though Cham's army is massive, but we know how these fights happen. If Immortals and Archons can stay alive for just a couple of seconds, they can really make their way through this Roach army. But the Phoenix also spots all these Roaches on the north side.
Just so many Roaches at the moment for Cham, and he is just toying with the idea of pushing on into this, just playing it slow, getting more Roaches out, probably just realizing, hey, you know, I've kind of got the time here to kind of just, you know, get a couple more Roaches. Okay, the Immortal count is rising, and that is a little bit scary, but other than that, it's Zealots. And again, those Zealots against this many Roaches, I mean, they're just not going to do that much.
How many kills on this Oracle? That's 2 Ravages before the fight is truly going to start, so that's actually quite nice. ShoWTimE does know, though, that he can't stick around too much longer. He needs to try to do something about these increasing Roach numbers. Just a couple of shots from the Immortals do a lot of damage. The sentries, this is basically ShoWTimE's moment. All right, the next time you overstep your boundaries, I'm going to force put you in, and I'm going to try. And it's actually still harassing as well on the other side of the map.
Cute little something to try and distract Cham, but that's all it really is, a slight distraction, and Cham is already looking to attack again. But those Immortals are having a great time.
I mean, it's 117 army supply against 60. But if there is 60 army supply that can make that happen, it's absolutely all these Immortals as well. But these Roaches are just gonna dive right on top of it.
Jerk takes down one Immortal right away. Another Immortal's kind of trapped here and can't get away from the bow, but the force fields kept a lot of Roaches in, and so a lot of them got slaughtered.
Oh,
and the army supply is coming back into ShoWTimE's favor. He's sticking around 60, and Cham is dropping down another couple of Zealots, and this time drones have to pull away from the third mineral line.
And Cham is actually just gonna give up. ShoWTimE holds without them ever truly fighting. The biggest problem for ShoWTimE is that Cham is on 4 bases. So even if Cham is down 4 workers, he can split those workers up over those new fresh bases, and he's still going to outmine ShoWTimE by quite a bit.
It's going to just take ShoWTimE so long to get that Nexus up. He wasn't even able to afford it until, well, very soon here. I mean, he actually builds up another Immortal, another Pylon in the meantime. Third Nexus is not on the way up still, and the longer he delays that, the more it's going to hurt, the more he's going to have these probes long distance mining, which obviously isn't effective at all. And even though he is 5 workers up, it means overall his income will be down. A big attack from Cham, who obviously has no intention of letting that third Nexus ever really survive.
I just had the biggest deja vu as these two had an epic game once in Nation Wars on Vani Research Station, where it was the exact same. Cham's army was always way bigger, way bigger, way bigger, but ShoWTimE had a Prism. He kept warping in Zealots, back then DTs as well, and he eventually stabilized, and once they finally really fought, ShoWTimE just crushed the army of Cham. Can he do that one more time? Oh. I love those force fields, Wardy.
Force fields are great, but now the Ravager bars have gotten rid of them, and the sentries are low on energy, but again, it's the Immortals which just chew through the Roaches, and ShoWTimE is making it happen
He's
once
making
again.
It happen.
Zealots are on the 4th base, and it's starting to take some damage, and he's just keeping these alive, and it's stopping further Roaches from reinforcing this army, allowing ShoWTimE to keep on fighting this now and then. The Oracle's back at work as well, and every time Cham comes forward, it's another couple Roaches going down.
14 kills on this Oracle, and the majority of those kills were Ravages, by the way, guys. ShoWTimE has done a phenomenal job with this one Oracle. Cham just cannot drone up, and he started looking at that Protoss army, and he's like, I know it's only 60, 70 supply, but there's just nothing I can do against it. If I run in there, those Immortals are going to cause a meat grinder for my Roaches. What a game so far by ShoWTimE.
Oracle, more like Orakill, because it keeps on killing Ravager after Ravager here, and Cham is just like, maybe I shouldn't be on the map at all anymore. He loses another, and ShoWTimE is making absolute madness happen, and now Zealots will get rid of this 4th base, because there's just not enough units at all.
Cham is going to go for it. This is the surround. He's going to come in from multiple angles, but a force field there by ShoWTimE is going to keep most of those units away. I would have loved to see ShoWTimE dive on those Roaches, but ShoWTimE probably just thinks, I don't care, we can fight wherever. I've got 6, 7 Immortals. You're on pure Roach. Can ShoWTimE hold one more time?
We're going to find out, because those Roaches are trying their best, but again, the force fields are fantastic from ShoWTimE now, as we do see the Immortal count is just lowering slightly, but so many of them on super low health, and what a hold it is, as ShoWTimE takes the supply lead, and Zealots are in the 3rd base. The 4th base is gone, and Cham is running out of options. It's do or die for him, but he really is only dying.
What a game by ShoWTimE, just like they had back then in Nation Wars. Always down 40, 50, even 60 army supply, but ShoWTimE knew that he has the right units, and all he needs to do is keep Cham on a low economy. That's what he did with the Prism. GG. Damn, ShoWTimE looking good.
What an amazing game from ShoWTimE. Kept his nerve, gave up the 3rd base countless times, kept at it with those couple of Zealots, and, well, this was just... I just don't even have words, honestly.
Very few Protosses who would stay that calm and composed while being 50 supply down. You look on the other side of the map, you see 3, 4 hatcheries, and you're only sitting on 2 bases, and you look at all those Roaches and Ravager. But ShoWTimE knew, yeah, you've got the bases, but you don't have the economy. And as long as I keep this Prism alive, then I know that I'm still in it. I mean, just perfect call. When he wiped in Zealots, when he wiped in Sentries at home, just a beautiful job there by ShoWTimE. A masterclass of how to hold against Roaches and Ravages in PvZ.
I think we said if there's ever a Protoss player that can hold that sort of Cham style of attacking with Roaches, it probably would be ShoWTimE, and that's exactly what we saw there to wrap up that series 2-0.
Awesome game, really, really fun to watch. Like I said, they had a game like that once in Nation Wars on Vani Research Station. It was almost the exact same, where Cham had that army supply lead. This means that ShoWTimE will advance to group stage number 3. This is also where the players from WCS Challenger will come in, so those groups are going to be stacked. And Cham is going to go after, Cham is going to have to go up against the winner of Hate Me and Guru. Now, Guru might be the more known player, but I actually think that Hate Me has a very good shot in that ZVZ series, as Hate Me is very strong as well. And Cham knows that he's going to have a very tough cookie to crack against either of those 2 solid European Zergs.
Yeah, it's really not going to be easy whoever Cham has to play against, because he's going to go I mean, Guru is going to be super, super kind of powerful, and Hate Me can definitely throw a bit of a spanner into the works as well. So it's not going to be easy for him at all. I don't know. I think you'd prefer to play Hate Me, right? But
yeah,
honestly, either of them are dangerous in Zerg versus Zerg.
I don't know, though. Like, Hate Me is one of those underrated Zergs, in my opinion. Like, these WCS events, guys, we don't say they're stacked just for the sake of them being stacked. Like, they're actually really solid. A lot of those guys, 6'3", 6'4" MMR, not easy. But ShoWTimE knows that he doesn't have to worry about either of those two Zergs anymore, as he's going to advance to the next round. He's on the stage with Anna. Anna, take it away.
Thanks so much. Now, the casters were calling this a master class in how to hold. Tell me a little bit about your techniques and how we could maybe imitate them if we're looking at you as an example.
Honestly, I think I got a bit lucky in the second game. Like, I think like I caught like one roach moving out, and I was like, that's kind of weird. So I scouted the path and I saw like some greens and stuff. So I canceled my third base and defended quite well the initial attack. And then I went for a counter, which I'm not quite sure. I think I killed a decent amount of drones, but then I lost most of my army, and then he had like so many units suddenly. So I don't know. I kind of held on because of Immortals. They're really good against roaches, so.
I was backstage with Nathanius, and he was saying, this harass is so good, this harass. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have much money to spend on harass, but I always sent in a few zealots to kill a few drones because he was really low on drones as well. So yeah, that was pretty much it, yeah.
Well, now you're on top. You look like you're all smiles. Tell us what your goals are for this tournament.
Since last year went pretty bad, my expectations aren't super high anymore. So I'm kind of happy just making it through group stages and then see what comes in the playoffs.
Well, best of luck as you do that. Congratulations again on this win. And casters, back at the desk, you guys, he's saying he just got lucky. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of a stretch. Thank you very much, Anna. ShoWTimE with a very, very well-played game holding on. We saw phenomenal control with the War Prism in both of these games, using a lot of the Archons and Zealots against the Roach Heavy Force. And goodness gracious, Todd, it was awesome to see that holding on and building up that very heavy Immortal count to deal with the Roach army.
Yeah, we talked about the Hydra meta and the Lurkers and all that, and I think that's what caused for Cham to play very differently here, to try and find some success in the early game, which in game 1 he didn't have at all. He just collapsed. In game 2, it seemed like, you know, he was doing too bad, but it's just ShoWTimE's micro in these engagements is just incredible. Like, so many players here would struggle very, very hard against this amount of Roaches and Ravagers and just die, roll over and die, but not ShoWTimE. He's just that good.
Yeah, he is really good. I don't know why he said luck, man. Like, those were some really awesome decisions made. He seems to have a specialty on Catalyst as well. He's had some other historic games where he's held for a very long time against an overwhelming Zerg force. I think his decision to make Sentries and other people would have panicked, made Zealots, was fantastic. Maybe not giving himself enough credit, but yeah, a little bit luck too.
Yeah, I really liked seeing the way that he used the Oracle as well to focus down the Ravagers and keep the count of them very low throughout most of the fights. Like, a lot of very tiny, precise things that ShoWTimE did that was able to help him claw his way back into that game. While he had the War Prism hitting the backside the entire time. As we are rounding out this group stage, we do have some results to go over with you as we get ready for our next match. And it's been interesting. We've had some good results so far. I know you guys have some stuff from these games you want to show. Todd, you seem very anxious to show me something.
Yeah, I followed Hero Marine against StarCraft. Like we saw Hero Marine earlier, have some success against Cass, so I wanted to see, you know, it's a pretty big matchup, I think, here in this group stage 2. So maybe we can jump into my laptop there, and I'll show you guys a very interesting moment from game 1 where they had been trading for a little bit. It wasn't yet decided, you know, who was going to win, but Hero Marine sets up a massive push with a lot of bio, and he's getting even some Ghosts, some Widow Mines, and with his Liberators, plus a few Ghosts here that are coming in, he basically forces this engagement out of StarCraft. He's like, okay, you're out of time, you have to engage right now, otherwise you're gonna lose all your walkers and all that. So he forces this kind of bad fight out of like immediately. You saw like the supply was pretty even when this moment started, but now StarCraft has plummeted so fast. And then he just ends up taking this engagement that I don't think he has enough to be able to claim the victory here with. So just like that, Hero Marine takes game 1, and then in game 2, it was just a Dark Shrine and DT Rush that did absolutely nothing, and then ShoWTimE just kind of died. So Hero Marine takes the win in that very important matchup there.
Well played. The well-executed push, of course, the Liberators need to be set up to cover that back line, having the mines
freedom
as well.
Was
the freedom zones helping to clear things out. You've got a game going on over here, Zombie Grub, as well?
Yeah. Currently in Seoul versus TLO, we also, or I saw that Snoot went over Bly, and then Bly went over to Muslim, but now into this group.
This is live, right? This is happening right now.
This is actually happening right now.
Rip Thors.
Seoul go into Mech. Obviously, that Thor drop did not work out because he wasn't expecting the mutas, but TLO actually opened this game by flooding with Lings and an Overlord drop that did like nothing. There was like 12 Hellions that killed everything. I think the muta swap was a big surprise for the person going Mech here, and his 2 Thors dropping out like that is incredibly painful. I mean, we may be watching TLO win this game because of how he found those.
And that's the decider's match too.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah,
Very
TLO's currently up
painful.
1-0, so he won this one.
Wow, and, tuning in right at that moment, that's brutal. So he's basically dying right now. Yeah, TLO's pretty much won this one. Nice.
Yes, basically dying.
We got to tune in at the crucial moment, losing those 2 Thors and Medivacs. Not how you want to start your game versus somebody who's throwing the Mutalisks at you, Todd.
A beautiful scene here as Lings run in and kill everything. I thought I was on your stream for a second here, looking at Terran buildings and units die.
Not cool. Not cool. So we do have quite a few games to come your way throughout the rest of the day. I believe our next match up is Arctur playing in the decider of his group. It's going to be an interesting one, sort of. Riggered Mechanics Bergman versus Arctur. We don't really get to see a whole lot of Arctur, but for a deciders match, makes things a little bit interesting. Could have a new player, a face come up that we don't maybe expect here, as sort of has been a staple in the European scene for quite a while.
Yeah, been in Korea as well, training, right?
Yeah.
So he made it to GSL, but didn't quite make it out of his group, which I think is still a lot of credit. But when he goes back to his home turf, European Zergs, man, he's got a lot to go up against. And with this ZVT, I think ZVT is probably something that he specialized in was over in Korea. So I think he'll be the one to win. But yeah, it's the decider match. Drogo's already through, and Niden's already out.
All right, well, it's going to be a Terran versus Zerg up next. You're watching the World Championship Series for StarCraft 2 here in Leipzig, Germany. We'll be right back.